Welcome to Fantasy Now Plus. This is supposed to be your Monday edition of the show, but we're here on a special Tuesday, June 10th, 2025, and we're going to talk NFL fantasy football what ifs. What if this thing happened last year? Where would this player be? And where would he be ADP wise this year? And of course, moving forward in the dynasty. So without further ado, let's bring in my buddy here. Let's get started with the show.
You're watching the Fantasy Recap, only on Fantasy Now Plus.
We are live here on YouTube today. This is going to be a tribute to the greatest show that was ever recorded yesterday.
And no one will ever know about.
No, but we had a great show yesterday. We talked a lot of things, but don't worry, we're not going to repeat the information. We actually drafted up a whole brand new show. And again, this is a tribute to yesterday's show, the Lost Show. Justin, how you been, man? What's going on?
I've been better because usually my recordings go through and it actually goes live, and it didn't yesterday. But we're here. Don't fear.
It's okay. Yesterday's intro was way smoother, by the way. But we have so much news to get to and so much content. So let's not waste anyone's time. Let's keep this thing at a tight 40, baby. We have big news. If you've been watching this show or this network for a very long time, either on Finn's Talk Sports Network or here Fantasy Now Plus, we've been telling you Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler. We've been telling you this for months and months and months. It is officially official. Don't done that. He signed a 1 year, $13.65 million deal, $10 million guaranteed, up to 19.5 in incentives. This was a lock of the century. I didn't want to hear anybody tell me about Will Howard or Mason Rudolph or this or that or here and there. I didn't want to hear it. So it's finally done. Now that the deal is done, Justin, how are we feeling about the Steelers? And of course, their fantasy assets, DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, so on and so on.
I do not feel great about it, to be honest with you. I know you're gonna say something about the stats and all that stuff, and I'll probably have some guesses. But I saw a graphic. It was like, who's stopping this Pittsburgh offense? And it showed Aaron Rodgers, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Robert Woods, and like 24 other teams probably. Like, this is not like a Super Bowl caliber Pittsburgh Steelers team. I think this is the team that's going to get Mike Tomlin fired. It'll be his first sub 500 season. So this is the most 8-9 team I could ever imagine on it in the NFL.
I totally disagree.
This is a classic 8-9 team right here.
I totally disagree. So listen, we don't need Aaron Rodgers to be the Aaron Rodgers of 2012, 2011, right? We need him just to be a game manager, someone that can get the ball down the field, not turn the ball over, which he doesn't do. He only had 11 interceptions last year. Mahomes had 11 interceptions last year. You know, it happens. Goff had 12. Like 11 interceptions is a very good number, right? We all can't be Justin Herbert throwing only 3. Aaron Rodgers is very efficient with the football. Yes, he's turning 42 this year. Justin, let me ask you this. I've asked multiple people this. Everyone has failed. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to be the first one to get it right. Where do you think Rodgers ranked last year? Just passing yardage, just total passing yards. Yeah, last year.
If you're asking me this question, if you're asking me this question, that means it was something high, because you're not going to give me a stat of a low number. You're not going to be like, oh, he was 20th. I'm going to guess that everybody guessed in the 20s. I'm going to say 10.
You're a terrible actor. You did this yesterday. You were wrong yesterday too, though, by the way. He is 8th in passing yards.
Act surprised.
He's 8th in passing yards as of last year. I've had many people tell me he's washed. I'm sorry. Like, what world are we in where a top 8 passer in the NFL is washed? I understand that you don't like him. I understand people don't like him. It's cool to hate Aaron Rodgers. I get it. I don't know why. I don't understand the hate. I don't understand why people dislike this person. but he's still serviceable. 3,897 yards, more than Justin Herbert, more than Brock Purdy, more than Kyler, more than Bo Nix, more than apparently, allegedly, the Steelers' number one option, Matthew Stafford. Now, would you be more? I guess I don't want to be you know, uneducated with my language here. Would you be happier or more content with Matthew Stafford as a Steelers quarterback? Because that's where they were. That's what they wanted, allegedly. I mean, he's 37. He's younger.
He's
Doesn't mean
younger,
better.
but he's also been hit a lot more. You know, I think I would go for Stafford, but Stafford's gonna be way more expensive. Like way more expensive.
I understand. So, for and the second option was Justin Fields, but Fields opted to go to New York. Understandable. Let me put this in perspective. Aaron Rodgers had more passing touchdowns than Stafford and Fields last year combined. Obviously more passing yards than both those combined as well. So I don't understand why this narrative of Aaron Rodgers is washes out there. Now his staff or his supporting cast isn't great. That's the story of Aaron Rodgers' career. He's always had one alpha and then pick up the pieces, make everybody else better. This year he has DK Metcalf and then Robert Woods. I thought Robert Woods has been out of the league for 3 years now. I had no idea he still played football. Like I'm amazed when I saw his name on the depth chart. Really, truly amazed.
So are you gonna go draft and pick up a Calvin Austin, Robert Woods, Roman Wilson because of Rodgers? You don't think he's gonna get? They're gonna be like the Alan Lazard or Randall Cobb?
No, I'm not going to draft any of these players, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to draft Aaron Rodgers as well. I understand that I just went on this huge Aaron Rodgers victory lap. But I'm not going to draft him. He's not, because you know why? Because he's not going to be a top 12 fantasy quarterback. And if we're talking home leagues, one quarterback leagues, he has no room on my team. And
do you think they traded George Pickens away because Rodgers was like, I'm not playing with him?
I've said that. I've said that off. What's going on, Bobby? I've said that off the record that Rodgers probably wanted Pickens out. And I think that he's had this deal done with the Steelers for 2 months now. I truly believe that. And you can't tell me any other difference. And I possibly he's like, get Pickens out of here, but that'd be silly. He's such a good player. I don't know what that whole situation was, but DK Metcalf's there. And DK is a really good real life NFL player. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if they can connect, we're going to see some magic. And I'm sorry, that division's winnable. The Bengals aren't as good as you think they are. The Ravens are really good. And the Browns are the Browns. That division is very winnable, especially with Mike Tomlin, especially with that defense, especially with that offense. They just need to run the ball with Jaylen Warren and Caleb Johnson. They'll be fine and just pass the ball here and there. I think they'll be fine. But Rodgers is officially signed. Deal with it. It's happening. It's already happened. It's going to be a fun NFL season in the NFC North. Next on the docket, we have we have a bunch of camp news, but my biggest camp news is CJ Stroud. Soreness in the shoulder, his throwing shoulder, at such a young age. The head coach Ryan said it's fine. It's fine. Everything's great. Yeah, I say everything's fine too, whenever thing is not fine. So I'm really concerned about CJ Stroud and him throwing, especially coming after last year's disastrous performance. By the way, he finished below Aaron Rodgers in fantasy football numbers. It's facts. How are we feeling about CJ Stroud today?
Apparently he is thrown at camp now, but I don't know. I mentioned yesterday, and we'll just keep referencing the Lost show, that you're throwing more at camp than you ever will in a single game. So, I mean, in a game, you're averaging 25 to 35 passes, unless like it's a ridiculous game plan and you're throwing 50 times. But at camp, you're going to be throwing a lot more on a daily basis. I get people are going to be throwing the ball at practice as well, but you also have had 3, 4, some of these teams 6 months off. So now they're just not coming back and throwing the ball really hard, saying, yeah, I got it. Everybody's shoulders going to be sore. If we want to talk about soreness in shoulders, CJ Stroud has soreness in the shoulder. Again, he's throwing. Anthony Richardson has soreness in his shoulder. might get surgery. He's getting a second opinion. Nobody really knows what's going on there, and that's about as much as I want to talk about that, because I keep saying every week I'm not talking about Anthony Richardson until he is relevant again. Trevor Lawrence is in an arm sling, but they swear it's nothing. How are you feeling about that? Just drafting him yesterday.
I drafted him in a charity league with our buddies over there, going for 2 their league. So I still feel
It's fine.
I can't believe
It's
I
fine.
can't believe I
It's
drafted him.
June.
I can't believe I drafted him. By the way, I drafted him over CJ Stroud. Just want
You
to
did.
point that out. I did.
And CJ Stroud is still on the board a day later. So no, it's June. I'd be more worried in August if this was still a reoccurring issue, if they were still having shoulder soreness. So I'm not terribly worried right now.
All right. Any other news you want to rattle off before we get to the
Yeah, I'll just break down the list of things that Sean sent us right before the show. Terry McLaurin will pay $100,000 fine per game to get a bigger contract. Let's remember Bengals.
Hey, my kids, the motto of 2025 with my family, my kids, just because we have the money doesn't mean we need to spend the money. McLaurin, right. Just because you have $100,000 doesn't mean you need to spend it once a week.
Right. For something that you could easily not do. Let's just remember what happened with the Bengals last year. They bet on themselves and they failed, and then they ended up paying a super premium for 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, McLaurin's not in there.
Let's figure this out.
McLaurin's not even in Higgins' tier,
no,
in my opinion.
No, he's not. Okay, Jalen Wright's added 6 pounds. Running back for the Dolphins.
So did I last night.
They have 7 running backs on their roster, so we'll see what happens. Kirk Cousins is at camp and will be a Falcon this year. They do not plan on trading him, and he will be the most expensive backup in the league. Shamar Stewart is at minicamp for the Bengals, but won't practice or participate until his deal is done. He's the only rookie still not to sign his deal. Jonnu Smith is not at camp. James Cook is at camp, even though he does not have a deal, and the head coach did say that he will practice. Speaking of Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson is still not at camp, waiting on a new deal or to be traded. And then other things, Jair Alexander was released from the Packers. Jalen Ramsey is not at camp. Luther Burden III misses mandatory minicamp with his soft tissue injury. Lamar could get a new contract. Michael Pittman Jr. Likely to be held out of minicamp with a knee injury. He suffered, I think, last week or maybe the week before. Came down weird at practice. So that's all the news I got right now.
There we go. And the last piece of news, Nick Chubb signed with the Houston Texans officially. Last year, he played 8 games, 332 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. He will be competing with Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce. I'm not touching Nick Chubb this year. I don't think you'll be touching Nick Chubb this year. I hope Nick Chubb is successful, and I hope Nick Chubb crushes it, and I hope he proves us all wrong, because I love Nick Chubb.
Definitely not touching Nick Chubb, by the way. I know he was a Brown, now he's a Texan. Like, I know those two teams like to get touched in ways, but I'm definitely not touching Nick Chubb this year.
I don't get the reference, but we're going to move on to NFL fantasy football. What ifs? Ooh. We have 2 scenarios each, where, if things would have been a little bit different. We always do this, right? Even our Tuesday mornings, man, if Arian Foster just didn't kneel at the 1, or if this guy didn't fumble, Arian Foster, what is this, 2008? Man, if this player would have caught this ball, right? We always run this scenario through our heads. What if I lost Super League last year by 0.04 points? What if my quarterback just threw for 2 more yards? I win, right? So what ifs? I'm gonna let you kick it off first. What's your NFL fantasy football what if?
So we all just, maybe some of us were like, yes, this happened, or they didn't ban it. Some people might have been upset that they didn't ban it. The tush push. So we're talking about the tush push and what would have happened, like what could have happened this year if the tush push was banned. You mentioned that Saquon Barkley was stopped at the 1-yard line 11 times last year, which is crazy numbers. And 10 of those turned into Jalen Hurts tush push touchdowns. Jalen Hurts had 14 touchdowns last year on the ground, and 10 of them were from the tush push. Now, standard scoring, 6 points per rushing touchdown. That is 60 points on the season, which would have dropped him, say, to 260 points on the season. Do you know where Jalen Hurts would be falling right now if he had no tush push touchdowns last season?
So if he took away all those touchdowns, probably looking at what, quarterback 9, quarterback 7. What are we looking at, Justin? Tell me the truth.
So without all of the touchdowns, sorry, I got some math wrong here. 322 minus 262, or minus 60 is 262 points, which actually puts him just under Aaron Rodgers. This would actually put him at QB 15 on the season, which isn't even a QB 1 in fantasy football. If the tush push went away, this is a completely different fantasy player.
It's hard to say that though, because what's going on, Anthony? Thanks for tuning in today. Yeah, it's hard to say because what if he bootlegs out, throws it to Dallas Goedert?
Yeah,
It's an extra
yeah.
points.
Oh,
So
and yes, it could be. What if he throws a touchdown instead? That's 4 points instead of the 6. What if he hands the ball off to Saquon Barkley instead? What if he hands it off to AJ Dillon? They have him now at the 1 yard line. That could be an easy
AJ Dillon.
touchdown. Have you seen that man's legs? Like
he's still stop. Yeah, I've seen his legs since I've seen his legs since the beginning of time, bro. It's a professional. The beautiful thing. Can I do this real quick? The beautiful thing about being off of social media is I don't gotta see the needless, mindless. Look at him in training camp. He's jacked, bro. They're pro athletes. They better be jacked. Like just 2 years ago, I was
Marvin
Harrison
Jr.
Anyone can get jacked, bro. Yeah, Marvin Harrison looks pretty good though. I was just saying Marvin Harrison looks pretty damn good. But I don't need to see these guys' legs. They're all jacked. Okay, they're all squat 1,000,000 pounds. They all bench press. They all do deadlifts. They all run fast. Can we just chill with these pictures? AJ Dillon, yeah, he's had strong legs for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Cares?
I mean,
guess what? The defensive linemen and the linebackers and the safeties have strong legs too. They all have strong legs. Even the kickers.
They still couldn't stop Jalen Hurts, man. So all I'm saying is that if you take away 10 tush push touchdowns, Jalen Hurts looks like a completely different quarterback in fantasy last year. I mean, super flex, yes. 1 QB leagues. I don't know.
All right, before I get into my first what if, I do want to plug the show FantasyNowPlus.com. If you have not gone over there yet, please go to our website. We have our rankings up there at all times. If you're in a league with Justin and I and you are in a draft and you're kind of like, oh man, where do these guys stand? Or how can if you're in a league with us and you're not following our content or going to our website, you're making a mistake. I know there is one person here for a fact watching or listening later, because he freaking sends me trade offers after every show and he takes advantage of the show. So if you're in a league with me and you're not, that's on you, buddy. But go ahead and join our Discord chat. I can't read that because I memorized it, but our Discord is down below as well.
Chat.fantasynowplus.com.
Yeah, I have it all minimized. I can't read that. I'm
There's
old,
a link
dude.
in the description of this episode as well.
Yep.
Also, you can visit our new subreddit, Fantasy Now Plus, where we will post all of our content there too and have chats and discussions, and you can ask questions. So if you're not a Discord person, but you are a Reddit person, go visit us on Reddit.
Yeah, that's right. And Finn's Talk Sports Network, of course, they host us as well over there. We will be running shows on their new sister channel, Finn's Talk Extra. So we'll have shows. So subscribe to all 3 channels. They're all putting out great content. And if you're into professional wrestling, I got to plug this because this is my first time I'm able to plug it. We will be going live, and I wish I had the phone in front of me, on Saturday with an author, ESPN contributor for MMA and NFL. I think his name is Mark Ramdy. I didn't want to mess that up, Bobby, if you're watching. We will have him live to talk about his new book about the NWO, how the NWO changed the world, of course. And we're going to be reading that book and speaking about it on Saturday night, no holds barred, if you're a wrestling fan. Let's get back to the content. What if targets were not just coming in bunches for one player in particular? And over the last 3 years, I constructed this list of the most targeted receivers or pass catchers in the NFL for the past 3 years. Devontae Adams is number 1 with 165.3 targets a year. CD, 163 a year. Garrett Wilson, 156 targets a year. Tyreek, 154. I can go down and down and down. They do fall off though. It goes from like 165, boom, all the way down to like 133. So there is a huge gap. Malik Neighbors had 170 targets last year, more than Devontae Adams has averaged in the past 3 years. That's kind of ridiculous numbers if you ask me. Malik Neighbors needed these numbers to be successful for fantasy last year because the majority of his targets were complete trash. 74% of them were actually catchable. He had a 35% target share, which we all know these. We all know these numbers. But what if I told you his fantasy points per target was lower than, of course, we know Brian Thomas Jr., also lower than Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a very, very low target rate. And plus, he's actually the number 2 receiver there next to Trey McBride. I expect those numbers to go up there as well. Malik Neighbors, with his new quarterback situation in Russell Wilson and possibly Jameis Winston, and hopefully not Jackson Dart yet, we're looking to spread the ball around here. We're not going to have Mr. Panic, Daniel Jones, the future quarterback of the Colts, by the way. We're not going to have him scrambling around in New York. Oh, where's Neighbors? Where's Neighbors? Just tossing it up to him. That ain't going to happen this year. We're going to see the ball more evenly distributed to Wan'Dale Robinson, Cam Scatterboo, Tyrone Tracy, Darius Slayton, whatever tight end they have at this point. No one knows anymore. I expect it to be a full, more complete offense instead of snap the ball, try to find Neighbors, throw it whether it's catchable or not. Neighbors' fantasy points per target last year was 1.51. Brian Thomas Jr. was 2.0. That's a huge gap. That's a massive gap. I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe this is the new norm. Maybe he's going to get 10 targets a game. That'd be obviously Hall of Fame numbers. We look at these guys, Devontae Adams. I don't think that's possible. If it goes down to the norm, around the 150, right? The alpha receivers get around 150. If it goes down there, if he loses 20 targets, we're looking at possibly 35 points going away, which would be even lower than what he was last year. So I don't know if he can sustain this success, but maybe with the quality targets going up from Russell Wilson, he'll have the same numbers, just less targets. But what if last year he didn't have 170? Would he be your dynasty one? Or would it be Brian Thomas Jr.? I don't know, man. I do think we look at numbers and we look at the early years, the early weeks. Early weeks, Neighbors was getting 17, 18, 20 targets. That fizzled off after his injury. That fizzled off huge after his injury. And guess what? His numbers fizzled as well. So if we're looking at the first 5-6 weeks where he was getting 17 targets, yeah, tight end or wide receiver one, baby. But if we get them to 8, 7, 6 targets a game, is he really still that wide receiver one in Dynasty? I don't think he is. So what if the targets do come back, Justin? That's my big point. What if? And I think it will.
Well, what if, but also what if the catchable ball rate goes up and he's actually able to catch? Yeah. So we can remove his targets, but I'm assuming that with Russell Wilson, that is like they'll be more catchable. So it won't matter. He won't need 170 targets to get 109 receptions. He could get 130 targets to get 109 receptions. So yeah, that's fair. He's still my dynasty wide receiver one right now.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It really, to me, look, and I understand people are going to rank him that high. I totally get it. I understand it. But in my eyes, he's still not superior to Chase, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas Jr., who finished wide receiver 4 last year. Malik Neighbors finished 6. He missed a couple games. I get that. He averaged 18.3 points per game.
What's the common denominator for all 4 of those wide receivers you just mentioned?
What do you mean? I don't. They're all wide receivers.
Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. They all come from one place. They're all LSU. The LSU just, I don't know. They make a completely different wide receiver, and it does not matter who their quarterback is. They're still going to be dominant.
True words. All right, let's move on to your next topic, Justin.
Not an LSU wide receiver, but he plays with LSU wide receiver and an LSU quarterback, T. Higgins. Many of you might see T. Higgins in your ADP and your draft boards. And you see wide receiver 19 on the Tua is going to meet up with the media. I wonder what Telegraph Tua going to say. Okay. A lot of
Can I
you might
stop you real
be-
quick?
Yep, go ahead.
I'm going to derail you just for a second, but this is real news.
Cool.
My friend at work said, "Hey, good thing your show yesterday got deleted because you've been blessed with better news." What's the better news? He sent me a graphic of Tua. A graphic looks real. Tua's announced his retirement, and I went through Twitter, I went to Blue Sky, I went to MiamiDolphins.com, went to NFL.com, couldn't find it. Now Raphael's saying Tua's going to meet up with the media. I don't know. I'm not speculating. It's just odd that my friend would send me this. I'm not allowed to have my phone at the broadcast anymore because Sean yelled at me. So I can't really get my phone up.
I don't see anything about
I don't
him.
see it anywhere either. But I assume this guy at work was just trolling me and he doesn't understand that I prefer to retire. Oh, in 4 minutes, Tua's going to meet with the media. Well, maybe he's just going to say he's awesome. He's in the right headspace. They're going to score 1,000 points this year. Tua, quarterback one. I'm a Tua fan, by the way. All right.
I will be happy if he gets to announce his own retirement and not Adam Schefter during the preseason game. So,
yeah. Where were you during that Andrew Luck retirement?
T. Higgins, if you look at him on the draft boards this year, you might see wide receiver 19 on the season. That's not great. It's not. Wide receiver 19, I mean, that's a starting, that's a wide receiver 2, but you're not drafting him to be a wide receiver 1. Definitely not drafting him to be a wide receiver 1. And honestly, I don't hate you for that because I have said on this show many of times that they just need to get rid of T. He can't stay healthy. But let's look at his games last year. I mean, he actually missed 5 games last season. 2 at the start. Then he had a crazy week 3 through week 4 through week 7, where he finished as wide receiver 7. Then he was out for 3 more games. And then from week 11 on, there was a bye week in there. He had a phenomenal year. 29.8, 19.9, a 4.3 week, 19.8, 19.8, 40.1. He finished as wide receiver 7 in those weeks too. If you really just think about the numbers when he's actually playing, he is finishing as a top 10 wide receiver in the league, and that's honestly just crazy insane to me. We're looking at points per game from weeks 11 through 17. He is 4th in points per games because of that 40-point week against Denver. Now you might think, well, Justin, the Bengals don't have a defense, so they have to play in shootouts. At the end of the season against Denver, they had to play in a shootout to maybe have a chance to get into the playoffs. Can you tell me what the Bengals did with their defense this year that makes them so much better than last year? They had a retirement. They drafted a guy who isn't practicing because he wants a better contract. You got Hendrickson, who also wants a better contract or to be traded. Like, their only defensive player is not practicing and does not want to play for the Bengals under his current contract. They've done nothing. They've signed 2 wide receivers and a tight end. You can't tell me that it's not going to be shootouts for Cincinnati this year. Like, you can't. And if T. Higgins is healthy, he is a wide receiver 1 on your fantasy roster. He is a top 10 wide receiver in the league. Now, remove that 40-point game. We'll see what happens. But he's probably closer to 14, 15, 16 range, like he should be. But don't sleep on T. Higgins. Like, if you're looking at the draft and you see wide receiver 17 next to his name, just remember that's because he missed 5 weeks last year. If we want to talk about points per game for the entire season, I know a lot of people say you can't count points per game. He finished as, can you guess?
Tell me.
Tied for 3 with Justin Jefferson. Only behind Chris Godwin and Jamar Chase in points per game.
It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
I
hate Teagan. He's my number 1 rostered player of all time. Dynasty. I just can't quit him.
And Raphael is right. They did cut their starting linebacker, so they got weaker. Unless they are getting a rookie that's better, but I'm assuming that actually Pratt got cut because they're trying to free up some space for Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson.
Makes sense. So this entire show, we've been taking things away. We're taking away targets from linked neighbors. We're taking away 40-point games from T. Higgins, right? Well, we're kind of adding games if we want to be perspective. We're taking away everything. So I'm going to give back today on the very last one. Chris Godwin, you already brought him up. Did you know through his injury in week 7 with 1 minute and 4 seconds left to go against the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football, he was tied as the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football with Jamar Chase, averaging 19.7 fantasy points per game. Did you know that, Justin?
I did
you know
actually,
that?
because I remember him being wide receiver 1 for most of the beginning of the season, and then he died.
That's right. It's not his fault. He was in a game with 1 minute and 4 seconds to go with 0 comeback potential, driving down the field with Baker Mayfield, and Todd Bowles left his entire offense in there. And Chris Godwin made a catch, a meaningless catch, a useless catch, and then he dislocated his ankle, season-ending injury against the Ravens on Monday Night Football for no reason at all, like literally no reason. So it kind of got derailed right there. Drake London was third, by the way, wide receiver 3 at that time. Drake London's so good. We're going to talk about him later. Not this show, but another show. Did you know Chris Godwin, if he would have stayed healthy and if he maintained his pace, he would have had 121 catches, 1,399 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns. Would have put him to 332 fantasy points on the season in full PPR formats. And I'm sad to tell you that would have not put him as a wide receiver 1. Jamar Chase had 377.4. Would have put him at wide receiver 2. So Chris Godwin would have been the wide receiver 2 on the season just because Jamar Chase had that 55-point game in week 10, that 45-point game in week 14, and that 41-point game in week 5. Jamar Chase was on a different level last year, man. He truly was.
Wanted that money, man. Contract year. He said, I'm betting on myself.
Yes. So when you look at Chris Godwin and you remember about the injury, and this is the biggest point that I think people forget, is his actual injury. I asked you on the show yesterday, what was his injury? Do you remember his injury at all? You're like, what was it? Leg, knee? What was it? No, it was his dislocated ankle, bro. Like, that's hard to come back from. The Buccaneers did draft a wide receiver in the first round, which I'm in love with, Emeka Mbuka. I want him to be the new greatest thing of all time. I think he's going to be the best wide receiver in this class. But he's back this year. Chris Godwin, they're expecting him back week 1. I don't know if it's going to be the same offense. I don't know if it's going to be the same everything because their offensive coordinator left. He went on to Jacksonville, Duval. Remember that press conference? Duval. But with that being said, Chris Godwin is in a secure situation with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, being the wide receiver 2 behind Mike Evans, and familiar with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, by the way, if you didn't know this, since 2023, he has thrown for the most passing touchdowns in the league. Overall, he's had 69 passing touchdowns over the last 2 years. That's more than Josh Allen. That's more than Lamar Jackson, more than everybody. I don't need to say it, more than everybody. So with this high-powered offense, with this rejuvenation of Baker Mayfield, I think Chris Godwin can come back and be a baller and become who he was supposed to be, a top 10 wide receiver this year. It's just he's going to cost a lot less. So I don't know, man. What if Chris Godwin stayed healthy? Where would his ADP be at? Where would we be drafting him? I think we'd be drafting him in easily first, second round. Maybe third round, fourth round, somewhere up there. Maybe not first, but definitely up there. So what if he stayed in healthy? What if Todd Bowles took his players out, losing 10 with 1 minute to go? Idiot. What if? Todd Bowles would have been if I was the owner, Todd Bowles would have been fired that day. That day, 1,000%. 1,000%. But that being said, man, that's the show. What if? What if Josh was the owner of the Buccaneers? Todd Bowles would be fired. So that's the show. I don't know if you have anything else to add to it, but it's been a fun show. Was it as good as yesterday's show, Justin? Do we have a gauge?
We had more news. We had
What's
more
the news?
surprising content because we didn't already hear each other talk.
What's the news?
All the news.
Yesterday we had the. Oh, yesterday. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had more news today than we did yesterday. So, and we had more comments, and maybe Tua retiring. So,
well, we had more comments because we're actually live on YouTube today. And yesterday we were not. Yesterday we talked together, like friends, like good old friends. It's me and you talking, chatting it up. But we're gonna leave you at that. We'll be back next week, hopefully on Monday, and hopefully YouTube will stream us But make sure you follow the show or the page because we do have a show coming up on Friday with Pudge and Jeff, Studs and Suds. They'll be breaking down whatever they break down over there. I know Pudge has a mini series going on of sophomore progression candidates, or what do we call them? Up and comers, breakthroughs, breakouts. Basically Marvin Harrison. That's what we talked about last week. Sophomores that will improve from their rookie season. So make sure you check them out on Friday, 3 p.m. If you're on the Pacific Coast, that's your lunchtime. It's perfect for you. If you're on the East Coast, take some time off of work, bro. Like it's settling down. What else are you doing at work at that time? You're pretty much done with work, right? We all know office jobs, you work for an hour and you just chill for the next 7, right? So just put us on, chill out, follow us on Finstock Sports Network, Finstock Extra. And guys, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.